Thanks for tuning in to The Real Deal Show, brought to you by ebodyboarding.com and Tribe Boards.
Hey everybody, Jay Reale here in Port Macquarie, Australia. That's right, I've flown all the way here. There's Vicky, Port Macquarie local. Flown all the way here just for this interview. I'm getting straight back on the plane after we're done. No, but this is a fortuitous moment because I have the opportunity to interview a person that I think you will be very interested in hearing from. This is Damien Alexander.
Hey.
Put it there, Damien.
Hey,
how
awesome.
are you?
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. I'm
Good.
so happy to meet you finally.
Well, it's a pleasure to
yeah.
meet you too. We've communicated
Yeah.
over the internet for many years. And if you don't know who Damien Alexander is, he is one of the people behind Vintage Bodyboard Collectors Facebook group, which is now probably something close to 40,000
Yeah,
strong.
I think so.
Am I right?
Probably, yeah, about that.
That
yeah.
is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And so before we get into the VBC, Damien, let's talk about your bodyboarding life. Now, where did you grow up and how did you get started in, in the sport?
I'm first of all, I'm overwhelmed to meet you and Vicky finally, like bodyboarding royalty.
Very
I should
nice
be
of you to
interviewing
say.
you.
No,
I mean,
man.
honestly, it's amazing. You know, I remember. Sorry, I'm digressing slightly, but I remember
Okay.
when I was probably 13, 14.
Yep.
Taking photos of you from Bodyboarding magazine to the hairdressers and saying, I want my hair cut like Jay's.
He wouldn't say that now, folks. That would not be how he wants his hair now. But thank you.
Yeah, no,
Appreciate
always been a fan and admired what you've done. So anyway,
Thank
I've been bodyboarding for, probably since I was around 10, 11, and then grew up in South Australia. That's really where where my heart is. Grew up surfing around Knights Beach and Bremer Beach and York Peninsula, and loved it. Continued through. It was never fantastic. I was never great, but it didn't matter. I had fun.
Yep.
Initially, a lot of my friends were stand-up surfers, and they still are. But I like the idea of getting closer to the wave and being different.
Yep.
I loved it, and it continued from there.
Were you in South Australia when we came through with the Mike Stewart coaching clinics? No?
Not that I remember. No,
Okay.
no. That I don't know where I was at that point in time. I might have, because I have moved around all around Australia. Lived everywhere. So so now I'm just a fan. I love the sport. I absolutely love everything to do with bodyboarding.
So you were in South Australia bodyboarding, and then you moved around obviously as you got older.
Yeah.
And where did you move to? How did
I moved with work when I started a career. I've worked in food safety and quality management, and but that as a result of that, I've lived in most capital cities in Australia. I've moved around everywhere, and what happened was over that period of time, you know, work became more of a focus. Family then became a focus. So my time in the water was really precious to me, and I do a little bit of it, but it was becoming less and less.
Yeah.
And I would see, VBC has been going for probably 11, 12 years now.
Yeah.
But even 20 years ago, I'd see a really great, and I hadn't been in the water for 12 months, but I'd see like on eBay or somewhere a fantastic condition bend board or an old, a 7SS or anything like that, and I'd pick it up and I just love it. It's like, I remember the feeling I got from the board, and I was just a fan. So I started collecting, and then and it sort of went from there. I guess.
So you were working in the food safety business.
Yeah.
And that, as you mentioned, it made your bodyboarding time a lot more precious because work hours, I assume, took away from the carefree days of youth.
Oh, definitely,
where you could just go to the beach whenever you want and have a session. So you really made it count when you could get to the beach. And you ended up moving, I assume, further and further away from the coast, right?
Yeah. So I lived about 2.5 hours inland from where we are now in Port Macquarie in a town called Armidale.
Yeah.
And I do have to travel a fair bit with my work. With that, I work for myself.
Yeah.
And but I don't get into the water as much as I would like.
Right.
By far. But I'm working hard to try to change that. So any time I get down, if I take my board with me when I travel.
Yep.
any opportunity to get in the water anywhere, even if it's average conditions. As I said, I'm not.
You're not picky.
I'm not picky. And I'm not fantastic. I'm not great. I just have fun, you know. I don't care.
Well, that's why we all started.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Well, that continues. So that feeling that I
totally.
had, I remember my first wave. I distinctly remember it, and that feeling that I've still got that feeling.
Yeah.
I still love it. I still love it.
I'm the same.
And then and then because of that ingrown passion and love for bodyboarding, and then when Bodyboarding magazine appeared, I was a teenager, appeared on the shelf of my newsagent, like, oh my God, like this is what's happening in America. And then Riptide started, and it just tied into that feeling.
Yeah.
And it's why VBC started. It's why.
Yep, sorry about that.
No, you're right.
The glasses keep falling off here.
It's why, and so, it continues.
Well, let's talk about VBC.
Sure.
So, what was the year? Let's talk about the year. Obviously,
12
Facebook.
years ago. So, 2012, 13, I guess, somewhere around there.
So that's kind of around the time when online message boards were phasing out and Facebook had kind of taken over as a gathering place for groups of like-minded people, I'll say, right?
Yeah.
So how did VBC come about?
Well, look, I started it. I met some people from buying trading boards online. So through Facebook Messenger or whatever, and as a result of that, I'd bump, knock on a door. I'm here to pick up the, whatever board it was, and I'd start chatting, and then say, oh, this is really cool. So I thought, was pretty new to Facebook at the time. I'll start vintage bodyboard collectors, and that for no other reason than I wasn't planning to do anything other than just share my love of it. That was it. And then I had a core group of guys for the first probably 2 years, maybe 50, 60 people. And then it exploded. So all of those people that, all of the people that were, really big on it in the 90s, and they'd gone on a similar journey to me. So they'd gone into work, career, stepped out of it, but they remembered the love that they had for wave riding.
Yes.
And then that came back, and they said, oh, I remember that advertisement, or I remember that board. And I, for the first probably 3-4 years, every day I was laser focused, every word, I really put a lot of time into it, only because I loved it and I had the time. And it grew from there. And I've got 100 times more back from it than what I've put into it. Easily. I mean, meeting you is just, I'm blown away. I totally am blown away. But I've made some amazing lifelong friends.
Yes.
Through it, I've met. I did a surf trip with Mike Stewart.
Yeah, Sumatra.
Yeah, Sumatra.
Mm-hmm.
I met Ben and Pat and JJ, and even because of VBC, the people that I've met in Australia too.
Yes.
It's just been. So I don't know why you want to interview me, because I'm a fan. I don't.
Well, let me explain that to the people watching this, in case you have been living under a rock in the bodyboarding world. Facebook, obviously, as I mentioned, a gathering place for people with like-minded interests. And in this case, it's a Facebook group called Vintage Bodyboard Collectors that Damien started all those years ago, and it, as he said, it exploded. Now 40,000, something close to that, members strong. A lot of the former pro bodyboarders from my era and eras after mine are members of that group. And the cool thing about it is I think it sort of almost could be credited with kicking off what we call the board again movement. Yeah. And I again credit Gianna Simonelli, who used to work for us, with coining that term board agains, which is referencing the people you mentioned a moment ago, which is those riders who did it in the 80s and 90s. Careers and family kind of took first priority for a while. They got out of it or just didn't have much time to do it, and they wanted to then recapture that nostalgia and that love of riding waves. So as they got older and they had a little more free time or disposable income, they got back into bodyboarding. And whether that be through actually riding or even collecting, because that really, I mean, that's the name of the group is Vintage Bodyboard Collectors. I think that's kind of at the core of it, that is what this man is being interviewed about. I'll call it almost a movement that Damien has helped to start and foster, and it's really been amazing to see some of the collectors. I'll mention Jordan Stollard, Glenn Pollockare, obviously, who's a moderator, and there's a host of other collectors, some of whom have massive collections of vintage bodyboards, but you've sort of overseen over these years some of these sales of boards that have gone sky high. In fact, there was one, of course, we all, if we've been on VBC long enough, remember the Ben Severson board that went for something close to $10,000.
Yeah.
That was a charity auction, as I recall, or had something to do with that.
We did a heap for Ben. So Ben was getting rid of a number of boards that he wanted to get rid of, which is amazing. So we've got VBC Buy, Swap and Sell, and VBC the main page.
Got it.
But yeah, so that if something was really special came up, we'd really help to help Ben or help anyone really.
Yeah.
And then as that movement grew and sort of took off, the whole idea was to promote the sport of bodyboarding. So we did and a few of us are still friends now. We did a podcast, because no one else is doing podcasts.
Yeah.
And then Manny started doing podcasts, and obviously your and so forth. So we stopped because we didn't want to compare. I mean, I've been asked multiple times, can we do a VBC board? I'm like, no, buy go to bodyboarding, go to wherever, because it's not about that. It's not about doing anything other than helping promote the sport, enjoy the sport, and people have devoted their lives to the sport like yourself.
Yeah.
And there's some core bodyboarding shops and owners around Australia, around the world, that have really, it's been their life, their livelihood. So I want to support them and promote them and get more people in the water and have fun. And,
well, you've definitely done that. I mean, you even started the International Bodyboard Day, which is the first weekend, first Saturday in November every year.
Saturday coming up, this Saturday,
so that's coming up. How apropos that we're doing this interview now, because today as we record this, I have to look at my watch because the time zone and day is different, but it's the 26th of October here in Australia as we record this. So that's really apropos. So I want to ask you a little bit more specific questions regarding boards that you've had over the years. Is there one particular board that you have coveted or love, or maybe you have it in your collection?
What's that? The board, and I had a few of them when I was younger, but it was a BZ Diamond Max. Yeah. So slick rails, and that board for me when I was younger, I had the original Morrow Boogie Kmart board, and then the Mark 77. I had some Mantas, but as soon as I got onto that BZ Diamond Max, my progress improved out of sight. It was the size, the template. Yeah. So that really holds a special place in my heart. Yep. And then when I went to Hawaii several years ago, and then I arrived at my hotel, and here's Jordan standing there with a pristine. Here you go. Hey, welcome to Hawaii. This is like, oh my God. Wow. Yeah, as I said, I've gotten so much more out of it than what I've put in. It's just been amazing. So I don't have a huge collection. I used to have a lot more. Now it's really more the sentimental ones, and then the ones that I ride. Yeah. But certainly the BZ Diamond Max, and they still pop up here and there. Yeah. I've got one ready to go for International Bodyboarding Day, which has never hit the water. I'm going to ride that next Saturday. So it's rare to find those without the slick rails peeling off. Oh yeah, absolutely. Because that was a warranty issue with that particular model for quite a while. So we're playing footsie under the table, folks. By the way, but so what is your sort of I'll call it daily driver? Like, what would your modern board be that you would ride now? It varies. I've got a few. I've got a couple of BSD Customs, which I ride, and I've got a T10. Some of the remake of the old T10 that Ben and Science did. So you like that high, wide point, wide nose? I'm not narrow. I'm a big guy, right? You lift weights too. I know you're a big gym guy. So I do that because I can't get in the water.
Oh, right.
If there was if I was if it was near the water, I wouldn't be touching the gym. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy it, but I'd be in the water.
Of course.
Yeah. So I mean, I like to lean in with my elbow to generate speed. So I need to have a wider template so I don't bog down. I'm not a small guy, so I need a bigger board, and sort of 43 to 44 is good for me.
Yep.
But that's and I rotate, but generally those. I mean, Ben for me when I was a kid growing up, you have your favourites, and and Ben for me was. I mean, he was a smaller dude, and the board looked huge on him, but what he could do on the board always, and I love the underdog, with the whole Mike and Ben.
Yes.
And it was like why I got into bodyboarding. It was everyone was standing up, all my friends saying, come on, why don't you stand up? I was like, no way, this is awesome, you know?
Yeah.
So so I really, really like that template, that wider nose template.
Yeah.
The bigger board.
Right, they're hard to find. They're, obviously BSD's been kind of at the forefront, or Ben in particular, since the BZ days, and then he carried that over into his BSD brand. But then there's Guilherme Tamago, who rides a similar shape, high wide point. So they're not easy to find, but there are some disciples, if you will, of that shape. And it's kind of, I've seen it making a little bit of a comeback. There's some of the board again generation of riders really appreciating those high wide point wider boards for the bigger upper body guys.
Definitely,
especially.
and thicker boards too. I mean, it was interesting when I was out of the sport for I hadn't been surfing for maybe the longest break was about 2-3 years, and then I bought a new board, and I don't even remember what it was, but it was boards that obviously gotten thinner over that period of time for obviously for speed and durability and a whole heap of other things. And I was paddling out going, this is sinking on me. It's like, it's not, I'm used to the Diamond Max that I'm going to ride at International Bodyboarding Day. It's like almost 2 inches thick. It's like a boat.
Right.
And for me, where I'm not, I'm not, I might pull a roll here or there and a spin, occasionally, but that's about the limit of it, right?
Sure.
It's not about, it's just having fun. So for me, it's just getting barreled, having cruising along. So I do like still, like that thicker board and but the boards now are amazing because the durability, and you'd remember too. You'd get, I remember probably not my first Mark 77, but my second one. I remember so happy to get it Christmas Day, and went for a surf, first duck dive crease.
Yeah, I was going to say, I see where this is going.
Creasing
your newborn,
almost in tears. It's like that's it. It's gone where today the durability is a different world. So much better. But it's still love a bit of flex too.
Right.
Like that rebound and that kick from the flex. Nothing too straight. And the early Manta boards. It's what I appreciated them, but I didn't like them for me because they were really tough. They had
that PVC bottom. So hard. Really hard bottom.
So without that flex, which you'd get naturally from the old, from old Arcel and your different types of materials.
Ironically, with bodyboard design, I found, like you pointed out, in the early days, 80s and 90s particularly, boards were very thick. In fact, probably a standard bodyboard was somewhere in the neighborhood of 62 to 64 millimeters thick. That was a normal board. Now that would be considered a very high volume board. And they're not easy to find boards that thick. But the durability factor is another thing that was very interesting. In the 80s in particular, yes, boards would buckle pretty easily because you basically had just PE cores and no stringers, no mesh, no stiffeners whatsoever. One lip landed on the board and it was just buckled and it would hinge on the crease. So some brands went the opposite direction. I'll name Turbo bodyboards out of Hawaii. Russ Brown made these insanely stiff Arcel core boards with vinyl decks and PVC bottoms, and he was starting to even incorporate stringers and fin boxes. And those boards, his whole advertising campaign was like a guy standing on the middle of the board, and the board was suspended between two chairs to demonstrate how stiff the board was. And then there became this sort of realization that, okay, too stiff is not good. But not stiff enough is not good either. How can we get it just right? Well, let's take a look at, golf clubs. Like guys swing golf clubs, graphite golf clubs, and they flex, but they spring back.
Yeah.
So graphite stringers came into the bodyboard world, and that's been sort of the status quo ever since the 90s. And it's and there's been a lot of experimentation with stringers and placement of stringers and shapes of stringers. They get the parabolic ones, and it seems to have solved that issue where you have just the right amount of flex, and you can even dial in the density of the cores, which to me is great. I mean, it's all great for the consumer, and people that ride bodyboards for fun, because they're going to benefit from all that. Right?
And I'm really, really looking forward to riding this board because I've been riding more modern boards, but going back and seeing what that feels like. So we're actually doing, as a group of us, going to Urban Surf for International Bodyboarding Day.
Nice.
And to feel that where it's going to be that consistent wave and really see how look, if it folds on the first wave, it folds on the first wave. It's okay.
Let's hope not.
I'm not that precious about it. Like, I've got some that are more sentimental, but it's going to be interesting to see how that feels.
Oh the old school board. That's going to be. I'm looking forward to seeing whatever clips you post up from that session. Have you been to Urban Surf in Sydney and Melbourne as well?
Not Melbourne, Sydney.
Okay,
a few times in Sydney. So I was lucky enough to be in, the NMD guys. They invited me along to one of their pool party days, which was again, it was a bit like sitting here with you, but with Ben, Ben Player and all those guys, and Winnie
generation,
and I'm hanging on for dear life, just making it out of a few barrels, and they're flips and spins, and it's just jaw dropping. But honestly, 2 days after that session, my jaw was the sorest part of my body from smiling so hard. And it's interesting. Like, it's great. The second time I went, I think I got 26 waves in an hour. And it's fun. You shouldn't compare it with the ocean. It's a different form of fun.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I went out this
morning.
morning.
Absolutely know what you mean.
I went out this morning and probably got 3 waves in an hour. But you know what? That was awesome because you're out in nature and you're feeling it. So it's different, but awesome fun.
Yeah, I agree. Now, you mentioned your trip to Sumatra. Obviously, you've been to Urban Surf. Any particular surf destination that you've been to that was your favorite? And on top of that question, any place you still want to go that you haven't been?
Oh, good questions. Look, that trip in Sumatra was amazing, well, for a couple of reasons. Meeting not only Mike, but also, some of the bonds that I made with some lifelong friends from that trip that we still chat today, and that was incredible to do that. There was a break in Koori called Leftovers, which a lot of the crew were going and surfing with Mike, but I would try to sneak off and get it less crowded.
Yeah.
And I'd come back and Mike said, "How'd you go?" And I said, "Yeah, it was good. Yeah, good work."
Yes.
Rather than surf with 12 people.
Of course.
But Leftovers was amazing. It was just very mechanical and great, and it was only a couple of us out there, so we had it to ourselves. So that was, and it wasn't huge. Now I because of physical limitations, I'm not going to surf anything too huge. I'm not going to. So. There's nowhere specifically that I'd love to go out and surf, really. I mean, I love it here at Port Macquarie.
Yeah.
There's some B grade, C grade waves, and I'm really happy to go and ride.
Yeah.
If it's not crowded.
Right.
I prefer C grade waves not crowded as opposed to A grade perfect waves crowded. So I just have fun.
Yeah.
So no specific breaks that I'd love to surf. I would have listed off. In my 20s, I would have listed off 10, 15, but now it's just having fun, and then getting out. So my stepson came out with me yesterday and he's just getting into it as well, and maybe my son one day, once we move down here, he'll get into it. So that's the stuff that's more valuable to me than 10-foot pits, really,
Right.
It's just about. And as I've said to my stepson and my son, it's not a competition anymore.
Sure.
Like, used to for me, the ego was like, I gotta I got to get that wave. I got to battle for it. I got to, I got to do more moves. Now it's like just have fun. It doesn't matter.
100% agree.
It doesn't matter.
How old are you, Damien?
51.
Yeah, so, I'm 60 and I'm at the same point in my life where the days of me competing for waves and scrapping and hoping to ride bigger and heavier waves are long gone for me. I want a head high, fun wave with not too many guys out. That's all I want now. And some guys my age, Mike Stewart being the obvious one, still has that hunger for big, heavy, gnarly waves, and he's competing against the world's best at one of the most competitive spots in the world. But that's, I could name a ton of guys my generation, Ben Severson, Pat Caldwell. I think they're more kind of in my same boat. They just want to kind of get away from that, right? We go out there for the reasons you mentioned. You're out in nature, you're relaxing, you're escaping from the day-to-day, right? The stresses, nobody can reach you by cell phone or mobile phone or computer because you're out there. And, although my wife has an Apple Watch and she answers texts in the water, and I shake my finger at her when she does that. But so I'm totally with you, man. And it's kind of, to me, it's a more relaxing place to be. I don't feel the level of anxiety when I paddle out, in an uncrowded session. The waves might not be world class, but I don't care. Hey, man, I'm in the water every day before work, and I feel great when I get out, and it sets me up for a decent rest of my day. And I think all of us that have been doing this long enough probably feel the same way, And you are, and without a word of a lie, and I'm not just saying, you're an inspiration. So you're looking, the amount of exercise that you do, and I firmly believe that using exercise is medicine. That's having multiple injuries. That Sumatra trip, I broke my collarbone there. Oh, you did?
On the last few days, and I ended up having I had a tumour in my collarbone, which only by chance was discovered when I broke it on that trip.
Wow.
So that was the end of that trip. It was all fine. So it's just having fun now and keeping active, keeping really busy and active. I can admire the guys, and I know, the guys that are tackling 10-foot pipe or whatever, anywhere. Chaupu, that's amazing. But I'm not gonna be charged.
Right. I don't want waves that can kill me anymore. I have no desire for that, man. That's those days are gone. For me, anyway.
For sure.
But I hats off to guys that get older and still have that hunger. Guilherme Tamaga is another good example, right? He just competed at Frontone at 52 years old and charged, and more power to him, man. Love that those guys do that. So just to tie it back as we wrap this up to VBC, any plans for VBC, or is it just going to be business as usual?
It's no real plans, and it's that whole big wave that happened, and that has died off somewhat. And that's okay. That's good. That's okay. It's more around, again, just I never started it to be at anything other than just helping.
It's not a profit center or anything.
No, not at all.
Right.
If the benefits it's had for the industry has been amazing.
Thank you. I'll totally admit that, man. It's sent plenty of people my way, and I love to send people to VBC so they can get in touch with
but
people.
It's not just me too. I mean, as you mentioned, Glenn, there's a whole heap of people that have been involved with it, so it's not, I can't take all the credit for that at all. And even yourself, getting in there and commenting and responding to people and the stories, and someone puts up a photo and you're like, oh, that was Manly 1984,
I love it, man.
I know, it's amazing. But thank you for not only for all of the from when your early competing days and your commentary and your game shows and I remember and Vicky, who's hiding off, thank you as well. That was everyone idolised Vicky, and
No, they coveted Vicky. They all wanted my girlfriend. Remember, Riptide wanted nude photos of Vicky.
I remember.
I had to go to America to find you.
Yes,
you did.
Actually,
So so thank you, and still being, obviously with e-bodyboarding,
yeah,
has been amazing, but still being, active and showing how to remain active and using, and that does have an impact on guys my age as well. Early days in VBC, I had people would message me and a number of other moderators to say it's saved my life, it's changed my life, because they're actively going out and getting back in the water and just moving again where they hadn't for years.
Yeah.
And so the stuff that you guys put on and talking about it, and yes, there's the peak competition and the industry itself, but that underground thing of the older guys and some of the younger guys for depression, for all the physical, really, really important.
Yeah.
And that's the benefit that comes with the sport that we love.
I agree. It's good to see, like you said, a lot of the older guys are getting in the water, and some of them are doing workouts or whatever.
Yeah.
And obviously guys like Louis Finnegan, I mean, that guy's like an Adonis, man. So he's hopefully inspiring the younger guys to up their fitness game, and it's all good, man. It all helps. It helps your mental health. It helps your physical health, obviously, to get into bodyboarding. And this guy's a big part of that whole movement, as I said, of the Board Again crew. And we thank Damien Alexander for that, man. Really.
No, I'm buzzing
Appreciate
meeting you two,
Mutual admiration.
No, totally.
Society here.
Totally. No, thank you.
No worries. Any final words? Anyone you want to shout out or thank?
Oh, look, the list is huge. So if I mention, I'm going to forget people. But thank you both.
If you know who you are.
You do know who you are.
Damien's
You do. We've mentioned a few names, but
right on.
But yeah, again, thanks to you guys for it's amazing to meet you both, and as I said, I should be interviewing you guys.
Well, thanks,
I'm just a fan.
Same here. All right, so that's it for us, patting each other in the back, folks. Thanks for watching this episode of The Real Deal Show. Once again, if you love this, subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a thumbs up, throw down some comments for Damien Alexander, and be sure to go to Facebook and look for the Facebook group Vintage Bodyboard Collectors, and the one where you buy, sell, and swap as well, if you want to buy, sell, or swap. And they'll give you the rules around how you can do that. If you have an old vintage board, there's somebody out there that probably wants it.
Yeah.
So once again, if you listen in the audio podcast, hope you enjoyed that. If you watched on the video, thank you again. And we'll see you next time on The Real Deal Show. See you in the surf.